Hi, it's nice to meet all of you. My name's Mia. I'm also known as Sai. I'm a freshly turned 22-year-old. I'm still in college. I haven't even earned my degree yet. And I've absolutely not had any typical industry experience. However, somehow, I've still found myself here talking to a lot of you about running some kind of indie studio. You're probably wondering why I would start talking about myself in such a bad light, or my inexperience in general. And it's because I want to demonstrate that you do not need years upon years of experience to run a studio. People will automatically kind of hear the word studio and assume you're on the same vein as Pixar or DreamWorks or whatever studio they think of, which simply isn't the case for most people starting out alone. Every studio is certainly individual and it's absolutely unique and will come with their own environments and social life. My experience in running and building a studio will be extremely different from yours, and that's perfectly fine. It's to be expected. I'm hoping this talk will be more of a helpful lantern for when you get lost, rather than a step-by-step guide, or a guide that I wish I definitely had when I was starting, because I kind of fumbled the ball for a little while. I'm planning to cover when you start and how you start a studio, first steps, pipeline, onboarding, the whole shebang. And hopefully have some time for questions at the end, although I know we are a bit time shifted, so we'll see what we can do. I'm going to cover everything chronologically in my experience. So first, who am I? Hi, as I said, I'm Mia. I'm also known as in the online space as Sai. I'm an indie artist who is now a co-CEO of a studio called Grim Tidings. I've been a solo artist for most of my career in Blender. I'm a decade in it now this year, up until recently when I just so happened to stumble into running a remote studio. I've worked freelance on some projects before. I've helped found another studio called Six Bird Studios in the States at the age of 19, so I've been around a little bit. Like I said earlier, this talk is going to be based more on my experience and lessons. Obviously, I'm young, I'm still learning as I go, and I by no means have all the answers to setting up a studio perfectly. In fact, mine did not go perfectly. It went the complete opposite. Hopefully, my knowledge and lessons that I've learned will help some budding artists out there who are interested in making their own studio someday, so that you guys know where to go, like I wished I had when I was starting out. So, how do you even start? Great question. One of my favorite books, Your Career in Animation by David B. Levy, covers this in the best way I can think of. Animation studios are born out of a need, especially when you're alone. It's not a build it first and things will always come kind of situation. More likely than not, as a solo artist, you'll have an idea for a story that is massively out of your range to do alone. You'll start with one person, and then you'll move to two people helping you, and then suddenly there's 20-odd people working with you, and you need a name to call yourselves because you can't keep calling it the project. That's the same situation I found myself in with my studio, Grim Tidings. I had spent the better half of a year making an animated trailer for a story that had been in my head for a long time called Dust Queen. It's a fan project of a show, of a series called Ruby, if you're familiar. I created the trailer, having not expected any response, to be honest, but found that people had really enjoyed it and wanted me to keep going, which was a problem because I had 4 artists and a dream. So I had, 4 artists, a handful of voice actors helping me out, and that's not going to work if you want to make a series, especially at the quality that we've been going at. So we needed a lot more help. My help came at the name of an animator called Ariel Mulini, or Rocket, who is an industry animator who knew the flow and the structure of a studio much better than I did. I was young and inexperienced. I did not know what I was doing. They helped me build up foundations, pipeline, workflow, and definitely helped me recruit the first few people to the team properly, interviews and all, scary word. It's important for anyone who wants to build their own studio to find your version of Rocket. Having that inside view and that guidance definitely helped whip me into a better shape and a better mindset overall. even if you have that experience, or if your years of experience in industry, I still believe having someone to bounce ideas off of and to learn off of, to help with meetings, etc., can save your bandwidth and help you stay level-headed overall. I'm certainly doing so myself. These days I'm aided by my co-CEO, Farah, who helps me quite a lot with the more business end, because I don't know what I'm doing, so it's definitely helpful. So pre-setup. This is the part that nobody wants to do, myself included. If you're used to working on your own, or if you designed a project to work around you initially, more often than not, it won't translate well into working with a lot of people. Take that from me, it absolutely did not work well. It's important that you get all your artists on the same page as you from the get-go, which is where documentation comes into play. How to set up tools, installing add-ons, where to upload stuff, accounts, even down to how to install Blender and change keybinds and stuff from anyone you've kidnapped from Maya. You don't realize how much setup you need to do until you're editing down like an hour-and-a-half long video on how to even integrate Blender add-ons and everything. Just keep in mind, this is also, it's just studio stuff, back end. When it comes to projects, and if you're working on a short or a series, or you're going into kids animation, obviously you're going to need an animation Bible, you're going to need a style guide, and a pitch on top of all of that. So hope you're ready to type, because you're going to be here for a while. Document like you're teaching a newborn is a rule that's been suggested to me multiple times throughout the journey. You need to get your team on the same workflow as you, or into a pipeline you've designed yourself. Don't skip this, trust me. I know it's easy to be like, oh, I'll do it later. No, don't do that. It's a lot easier to point people to documentation than it is to answer the same question 20 times. Also, you can't over-document something, don't be afraid to. There is a whole ton of online solutions for displaying it too, like there's wikis or Sway or a Google document if you want to keep it simple. And if you're not sure what needs to be documented, just ask your team. They'll usually tell you what they aren't sure of, and if they don't, you do it anyway, because they don't tell you much. The pipeline, everyone's favorite. Every studio needs some version of a pipeline. When you work alone, it's a lot easier to stay somewhat loose. Like if you finish a model and you get to animating it and suddenly realize you forgot to model a part of the outfit that's intrinsic to the shot, or you need to tweak a part of a rig for a single shot, you can do that easily when you're by yourself. But as you can expect, that becomes a lot harder when you multiply that by 15 to 20 people, each with their own wants and needs in a rig or a model, all with their own workflows, who might have never even touched a Blender before now. So the pipeline, at its fundamental level, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, is it's a series of checks and approvals to make sure things don't crash and burn. At its barest bones, it's literally task assignment, task process, and task approval. Every pipeline in the world is built on those bones. You can expand it, you can probably not shorten it beyond that, but if you can, good job. The great thing with being indie is that you don't have to cater to the stereotypical pipeline with all the checks and supervisors and leads and every other pillar that would require another person to be in charge of. You can kind of sculpt it as you go, and that's certainly what we've been doing. Then in terms of like software and paying for stuff, you have to consider what programs you're going to be using during your production. This can be as simple as literally Blender, Google Drive, and Discord, like we did initially for like the first 6 months. You can also diversify and look into more tools to help manage and store your files. Nowadays, we use a mix of Goo Engine and Blender 4.4 for animation and rendering. Goo Engine, which is a branch of Blender made by Dylan Goo, if you're unaware, takes care of our characters, while 4.4 renders out our backgrounds with cycles and flamenco. We're also beginning to use more management tools as well, like Kitsu and Prism 2 pipeline. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to go into those in much detail, but I have QR codes on the next slides if you want to have a look into them yourself. I recommend them, but they're a little bit of a pain to set up. Unfortunately, though, there is a bit of a startup cost no matter where you go. Securing a domain, if you're making a website, server space, licenses, etc., will always kind of eventually cost you money. You can't escape it. You can't escape capitalism. I've tried. It's not working. Not to mention upgrading your hardware if you need to, for better graphics cards, more storage, etc. Between hardware, domain upkeep, and some other upkeeps, licenses, etc., for us, running cost turns out to be roughly €200-ish per month, which on the lower end of things is quite cheap compared to every other industry studio. Those are the QR codes for some of the software. So the Fox is Kitsu, the funky-looking P is Prism, and C-File is what we're using for cloud storage at the minute. So those are there if you want to have a look into them. OK, everyone's favorite, onboarding, the scary bit. Eventually, you'll have to get to the point of actually inviting people to your studio. This could be really daunting if you're doing it alone, and certainly in my experience as a 20-year-old, you can feel extremely intimidated by the skill of people applying to work under you. The process, in a sense, it's the same as any normal job application. You send out a call to whatever social media platform of your choice, have applicants fill out a form, and pick your best candidates and interview them and see if they fit well for your team. There's really no way, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel with this. If it works, it works. If it's your first time acting as a recruiter, don't stress. It's scary, I know it's scary, but it's almost always as nerve-wracking for us as recruiters as it is for the applicants. Just fake it till you make it. Keep that Google Doc of questions off to the side and smile and wave. Getting face-to-face with your applicant will also help you both relax. So as daunting as it is to turn on the camera, it does work. I hate to admit it, but it does. Right now, the industry is absolutely ripe with talented individuals looking for work. If you do it right, you'll find some absolutely amazing connections and contacts who will be interested in working for you or with you on your project, who will have, connections of their own and then connections of their own. It's a great thing. I love the animation industry. The great thing about being a virtual studio is that you also get to work from home. I won't say all, but I know a good lot of people would prefer to stay in the comfort of their own home and work on a project rather than face a commute into an actual studio. You will never guess the amount of times I've done very important meetings in pajamas on the couch. This is especially true for students. So you're obviously more likely to have applicants from students rather than professionals. And I know most people be like, oh, students, that's not great for a studio. But it's not always a bad thing, trust me. Students are like finding a diamond in the rough. There might be some scuff marks sometimes or some little things that you have to polish out, but when they have the foundations, there's really nothing better than getting to watch them turn into really, really great artists. If you can, take the chance on them, because once upon a time, somebody took that chance on you too, so carry it forward. So, family style, communication within the studio. This is the painful one. Bonding and community within the studio are one of the better parts of being indie. In larger studios or more professional studios, more often than not, you're in your own department and you don't get to see what other departments are doing or even see what you've made progress down the different stages of pipeline until it's the final thing. With virtual studios, especially relatively small ones, you get to see everything. More than likely, everyone will also know each other by name, so sometimes even on a deeper personal level. Essentially, you'll become less workplace colleagues and more family, which is where family style comes from. However, it has its benefits and its faults. With family style, you can certainly become extremely close to the people you work with, depending on the studio. Nothing builds a bond faster than a 12-hour Discord call during crunch season for self-imposed deadlines. It becomes a ritual, can go from office hours to a hangout spot very quickly with the right attitude. This might sound great to some people, and it might sound horrifying to other people, so take it with a grain of salt. You should always aim to be friendly with your team, of course. It improves morale and attitude across the board. Plus, you get some very crazy memories sometimes. 4 a.m. in a voice call. You never know what comes out of people's mouths. However, it can also make some of the tough parts even tougher. When people need to leave the studio or get placement, it's often a lot harder to say goodbye and let them go once they're part of a tight-knit circle. It's even harder to cut people who might not be dragging their weight during production, but who are really fun to hang out with or talk to. It can feel like betraying them, which nobody likes doing. Continuing off that, you might even face issues where leads or bosses are too busy being friendly or hanging out in a call to act as a boss when it's really needed. Naturally, in an indie studio, you'll be wearing a lot of hats, but as a business owner, you have to remember to act as a professional sometimes. It can be hard to switch between. It can come off as cold or standoffish to people who you've been talking to as a friend until recently, so it can be tough to balance, but unfortunately, it's just a risk sometimes you have to take. So, the whole money thing, oh boy. I can't talk too much regarding financial success or ruin, seeing as Grim Tidings is a completely volunteer studio, thanks to the project we're working on. However, there is one thing I've seen in other studios that I've worked alongside that I can warn about. Beware the studio versus freelance agency situation. You're a team, not a group of individuals, so you decide for the team. I've seen cases where 2 or 3 artists will be working on one project and getting paid while the rest of the studio watches because there's no positions. So if someone comes on and requests like animators, but you obviously, as a studio, have modelers, riggers, renderers, etc., you don't want only the animators getting work and the rest of people watching, essentially. It might be really tempting to take on anything that offers you money at the start, but really sit for a second and think whether or not it's a fit for your crew first, and if you as a studio will get what you need out of it. Sometimes you'll get a job opportunity that looks great, but sometimes the final product, you can't put it on a reel or anything, so it's kind of, great, we did it, but now what? We can't kind of get anything out of it ourselves. And here is the reality check. So it is important to remember that sometimes, despite anything, even if you followed every single step to the letter and did everything perfect, that your studio might still unfortunately fail. You have to be prepared to start again, to try different avenues, and to take on work that you might not even want to do to keep your crew alive and working. Making a studio and even putting out work is never guaranteed for success. So much depends on the algorithm these days, and you have to twist to work at it. Don't be super surprised if your first attempt fails. Just keep trying. It can be a little bit demoralizing, but keep going. It'll catch. You just gotta, the more kind of you put into it, the more likely it is going to catch. Just make sure you know what you're getting into as well with a studio. Having a studio, it's not just, oh, I can animate what I want and all these people will animate it with me, hurrah. If you want to be successful, you have to put the well-being of your artists and the studio before yourself. You also become the face of the team everywhere, in social media, in YouTube, in public even. Everything you do will reflect back on your team. You become the voice for your team, so make sure to use it respectfully. No more crazy call-outs on twitter.com. No experience in that. So, to end with something John Hayes said, having a studio is like having one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. If you feel that that true joy of artistic creation can be only fully experienced when everything you have is at risk, so money, family, friends, your reputation, etc., then starting an animation business is the way to go. And I think we might have time for some questions? Question mark? Yeah.
With the fact that your studio is volunteer-based, like, how did you establish how much time each person can dedicate to the work? Like, did you all come together and decide like a people at a time, or how did that work?
So how we kind of established how much time people put into their time into the studio, that's entirely volunteer. So some people were working in other studio jobs, some people were working like as customer care or managers. It's essentially, if you have free time, get it finished, or at least it was previously. In the future, in our cards for the future, we're currently trying to get a more kind of a check-in, check-out kind of deal, kind of like punch card kind of situation. But because it's volunteer, there's no hard limit on how much time you can dedicate. Like if you can only dedicate 2 hours this week, you can only dedicate 2 hours this week. It's nothing stressful. As long as you get your shots done, then it's not the end of the world for us. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you all.